Tracking is a very common issue for many advertisers out there, especially since the iOS 14 update. And in this video, we will talk about native advertising, our own tracker, and how we can get almost 100% precise tracking with native advertising. Hi everyone, my name is Marcel Sattler. I'm the founder of PurpleBlack, a native advertising only agency. So what we're doing on a daily basis is we're investing our clients' money into performance campaigns with native advertising traffic sources like Taboola, Outbrain, Yahoo Gemini, and many more. When you're in online marketing and paid media, you already noticed that data is very crucial. You just can't take the right decisions with the right data. And without having all the data, you cannot make the right decision. But unfortunately, Apple released the iOS 14 update. And I know it's not a current topic. It's a topic which already started in the past. But most advertisers didn't recognize the iOS 14 update when it was released. But it kicked in just in February, March this year, because that was the point where they see, okay, a lot of people install it, a lot of people disabled the ad tracking, and now they're losing the data. So many advertisers, many brands are struggling, not directly after the iOS 14 launch, but since February, March 2022, because that was the moment where the iOS update directly kicked into them. When you're in online marketing, you already are facing with the issue of tracking or of missing tracking in this case, then you know exactly how painful it is, because you want to take decisions by data. You're just able to take decisions by data. But when you don't recognize or when you don't get the real data, the current data, the, for example, right data, then you cannot make good decisions here. And it's a very big pain, and it's a negative way into the ground. So we are here currently, while I'm recording this video, just a few weeks before Q4. And for many e-com brands, for many e-com stores, Q4 is the most crucial part of the year, because that's the time when the real revenue is generated. But without data, with a data lag, you're not able to scale campaigns, because you don't know which campaigns are profitable and ready to scale and which campaigns are not. And in this video, I want to give you a little bit of an overview how we can ensure a highly secure tracking with native advertising. By the way, when we're talking about native ads, we're talking about traffic sources like Taboola, Outbrain, Yahoo Gemini. And let's be frank, all traffic sources, either it's Facebook, Instagram, or Meta in general, and Outbrain Taboola, they all have the way of installing pixels, and yeah, you will receive the information back, and normally you will pixel the whole funnel. And sometimes it's working, sometimes not, but you will also lose there some conversions. So also when you just use the basic Outbrain setup, the basic Taboola setup with the pixel implementation, you will lose conversions. And sometimes, the good news is sometimes it's possible to use the server-to-server tracking, but that's not always the case. So for example, you're able to use the server-to-server tracking when you're generating leads and when you have your own API, your own platform where you're generating the leads, and the server will respond back to the traffic source. But that's also working with Facebook, for example. But of course, it will also work with Taboola and Outbrain. So that's the regular server-to-server tracking. But when you have, for example, a Shopify store, you will not be able to use the server-to-server tracking properly. Also not when you use just the basic pixel implementation of Taboola and Outbrain. So that's the reason why we have our own tracker. And we need our own tracker, and by the way, I highly recommend to use a tracker for you when you're running native ads. Not just because we needed to split data, we needed to split, for example, different campaign testing and so stuff, but we also needed to see how much bot traffic did we receive, and of course, we need it for tracking. So the tracking part is just one part of our tracker, and I think you already see the tracker is a very important tool for us, because that's the point where we see all the data, that's the point where all the conversions are running in, that's the point where we do a lot of split testing and see all the KPIs. And unfortunately, the tracker is a custom-made solution, so you're not able to directly buy it when you just want to Google it, what's the name. So it's a custom adapted solution for us. Today, I don't want to talk about the tracker in general, but today I will talk just about the tracking and the conversion tracking. So let me explain you on my screen how it works. So normally you have a campaign and we are generating a campaign link through our tracker. Let's say that's the link. And now we're setting up this link and put in all the data which we need. And we put this URL into a traffic source like Taboola or Outbrain. TS for traffic source. And now the ads will be visible on the open web and someone see the ad and say, hey, that's interesting for me. I want to click on it because I want to read the editorial or I want to get more information about this product or service. So someone is clicking on it. Let's make this here a click event. And what's happened then is our tracker is generating in real time a lookalike of this person with an ID in our tracking background solution. So after clicking, you will automatically get a stamp mark for your click, which is just named a click ID. And I know this method in general is not very new because that's very normal. But what we do here is, because there are many ways how to disable it or how to block the click ID. But we will set something different. We will also set a cookie there on the client. And you might be thinking, okay, that's not possible sometimes, but believe me, we found a solution how it's possible. And it's a combination of a favicon and some other tracking code, which we used here. But it's a little bit complicated, so I'm not able to explain it here in detail, but I just can tell you we're using a different way to track it. So we're not just using one thing to get the click ID through the whole conversion event, but we're using multiple events like a favicon tracking and all that stuff. So it's very advanced, and by the way, it costs us a bunch of money to develop it, and we are using this tracking method for huge clients where we are spending a lot of money. So therefore, it's a very legit bulletproof method. But back to the topic. So we are setting a click ID plus many additional different queries. So you have the click ID, but you also have a lot of data additionally, which we need for the process. Because we're not just checking the click ID, which could be differently, but we're also checking more than 20 other parameters just to recognize this user in detail again. And what we're doing now in a very simple way, by the way, it's way more complicated, but that's just a very simple way. And then we are passing the click ID through the lender, and we will also pass it through the offer. And we'll also pass it through the thank you page. So that's just in general how it's working. But you might be noticed that, or let me explain it a little bit differently. So in the campaign URL, there are a lot of parameters. There's not just a click ID, but there are also UTM parameters, of course. And they're more or less for the client in the most cases, because we know exactly that the UTM parameters get blocked by some ad blockers, for example. And by the way, also by some traffic sources. So not every traffic source provides you 100% of the UTM trackers, but more about it a little bit later in this video. Just let me explain how it's working. So therefore, we are passing the click ID, the UTM, and many other parameters, which always depends a little bit. Therefore, our setup in the tracking, or the tracking setup, is also a very huge process for us, because the parameters are always depends on the project and on the data we need. The setup process of the tracking is a very huge part of our setup process, because we have to make sure that we pass all the data in the correct way. And yeah, that's in general how it's working. And after someone is firing the thank you event on the thank you page, we are checking all the parameters like click ID, but also the other parameters, and double check to make it really 100% secure that we catch the right conversion ID. And what we're doing now is just after the process confirms everything, we will pass the information into our tracker, and there we are able to see the correct information. So you see, it's a very simplified process here, but it's extremely huge with a lot of documentation about this process, because it's very hard also for our technicians, it was very hard for our technicians to implement this process, and it grows by years. So that's in a nutshell how our tracker is working, and believe me, you can use any other tracker out there. You will not be able to track it almost as good as we are doing it here. And I never ever found the other solution. It's not just because we are very good in this, but we understand how important data is, and therefore we invested a lot of money into the data. But why do we need it? Why did we just not working with for example, with the tracking method of Outbrain Taboola or with UTM parameters? So let me explain first of all the UTM parameter issue. Yes, you can use UTM parameters, but many ad blockers are blocking also the UTM parameters, or also some browsers are blocking it. And by the way, you have the issue that some traffics, or let me explain it a little bit differently. So when a user comes to a news page, let's say time.com, and if he or she is in Europe, and here we have the privacy policy, which is very high, the GDPR, and therefore we have a cookie banner here. And if someone declines the cookie banner and say no, then Outbrain will not pass the information. Also, when there is a sale, Outbrain will not pass the conversion into the dashboard. So you will receive 0 conversions also when you receive conversions. And the same process normally just works when everything is going well. So someone goes to time.com, accept the GDPR and the cookie consents, and they make a purchase. Just then you will receive the information in Outbrain. And by the way, Taboola is working the same way. So it depends on the GDPR, and of course many people have ad blockers. A lot of browsers already block every data out, like Apple, Safari, to not get tracked here in a proper way. And that's the reason why we can track 99% from the conversions. And we not just need it for the final conversions, but we need it for optimizing the campaigns, also for further conversions, because normally we're not just tracking the final conversions, but when we have a funnel view, we have a view content, we have add to cart, we have a payment method, for example, and just here we have the thank you page, which is confirming the sale. But we need all these informations, and here we have the same process. So we are proceeding those informations and put it back to the tracker to see all this information in an accurate way in our tracker. So therefore, it's super important for us to use our tracking method. And by the way, that's more or less our hub for optimization. So that was just a briefly overview about tracking. And I know it wasn't a real this could you do to solve your tracking issues video, but I hope I could give you a little bit of more information about how we have saved for us the tracking and how we can ensure that the tracking works in a proper way and that we will receive the correct data to take data-driven decisions. If this video gives you a little bit of inspiration, I would extremely appreciate it when you give me a thumbs up, and of course, when you want to receive more updates about native ads, about Taboola, Outbrain, Yahoo Gemini, then definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel here, and we will see you next time on next video. Thank you very much. Have a good one. See you next time.